Chosen one. America is not starving for money. It is starving for righteous power that knows how to carry money without bowing to it. That's the difference. That's the tension in the air right now. You can feel it if you're honest. There's wealth everywhere. Numbers flying across screens, valuations rising and collapsing overnight. Billionaires multiplying. But something feels hollow. Something feels misaligned, because money without kingdom consciousness builds towers that shake. Money without moral spine builds empires that eventually turn on their own creators. And deep down, whether people admit it or not, this nation is aching for a different kind of wealth. Not just bigger, cleaner, anchored, guided, focused. Stay with me until the end of this message, because something shifts when you really lean into it. And right now, in this moment, I want you to pause, just for a breath, and quietly release your warmest wish into the atmosphere. Not a rushed wish, not a desperate one. The kind you barely say out loud. Then when you're ready, write it in the comments and seal it with men. There is something powerful about declaring hope publicly. There is something electric about aligning your desire with intention, and when many voices align at once, something changes. It's subtle, but it's real. Energy moves, doors respond. Now, let's return to what matters here. America does not need more billionaires who worship status. It needs kingdom billionaires. And when I say kingdom, I'm not talking about branding or church slogans or polished stages with soft lighting. I'm talking about internal government, self-governance, discipline, vision that stretches beyond personal comfort. A person who can hold billions without being owned by billions. You've seen what happens when wealth grows faster than character. We all have. It gets loud, it gets arrogant, it gets reckless, and eventually it fractures. History keeps repeating that lesson, almost stubbornly. But what if, and this is where I want you to focus, what if the next wave of wealth isn't accidental? What if it's strategic? What if it's being reserved for people who have already been trained in obscurity? That's the part most people overlook. Kingdom wealth doesn't usually land on people who've been applauded their whole lives. It often grows inside people who have been misunderstood, overlooked, pressured, refined in private battles nobody clapped for. Because when you've endured without applause, you don't need applause to function. And that makes you dangerous, in a good way. America is loud right now. Opinions everywhere, systems shifting, economies recalibrating, technology accelerating faster than emotional maturity can keep up. And in the middle of all that noise, there's a quiet preparation happening. It doesn't trend, it doesn't shout, but it's steady. Kingdom billionaires are not built by hype cycles. They're built by friction. By learning restraint when you could have reacted. By learning generosity when you barely had enough. By choosing integrity when shortcuts were available. That kind of wiring doesn't form overnight. It forms through seasons that feel unfair. Let's be honest for a second. If wealth is simply a magnifier, and it is, then whatever is inside a person becomes amplified when money enters the picture. Fear becomes paranoia. Ego becomes tyranny. Insecurity becomes control. But wisdom becomes structure. Compassion becomes policy. Faith becomes long-term vision. So when we say America needs kingdom billionaires, we're not just talking about personal success. We're talking about infrastructure with conscience. Business with moral clarity, innovation guided by responsibility, capital that circulates instead of suffocates. You can feel the gap right now, the distance between financial power and spiritual grounding. It's why so many people distrust wealth even while chasing it, because they've seen what happens when money floats without anchor. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Money itself isn't corrupt. It reveals. It accelerates what already exists. So the question isn't whether wealth is good or bad. The question is, who is carrying it? And that brings it back to you. Because if you feel something stirring when you hear the phrase kingdom billionaire, that's not random. It's not ego either, at least not necessarily. Sometimes it's recognition. Sometimes it's responsibility tapping your shoulder quietly, saying, "Get ready." Not for flexing, not for dominance, but for stewardship. Stewardship is not glamorous, it's weighty. It means understanding that influence is borrowed, not owned. It means realizing that if you are entrusted with expansion, it is not purely for personal consumption. That kind of mindset changes everything. America doesn't just need entrepreneurs. It needs architects of sustainable impact. It needs leaders who understand that profit without principle collapses eventually. It needs wealth builders who are not intoxicated by their own success. Focus, because distraction is the #1 enemy of future stewardship. The system thrives on scattering attention, notifications, trends, manufactured outrage, constant stimulation. And while everyone is reacting, very few are preparing. Kingdom billionaires prepare differently. They study systems quietly. They observe patterns without immediately inserting themselves. They build internal stability before external scale. And most importantly, they master themselves before they attempt to master markets. Self-mastery is unglamorous. It's waking up when you don't feel like it. It's finishing what you started, even when excitement fades. It's refusing to let emotion dictate every financial decision. That discipline compounds just like money does. There's something else you need to understand. The future economy is not just about innovation. It's about trust. And trust is collapsing in many areas. Institutions lose credibility. Leaders fall. Narratives shift overnight. In that vacuum, people look for steady hands. Kingdom billionaires are steady, not because they don't feel pressure, they do, but because they've already survived internal storms before external ones arrived. Think about it. If you can't handle small influence without ego distortion, what would large influence do to you? If you panic when managing hundreds, what happens when you're responsible for thousands? The preparation phase matters. It feels slow, sometimes humiliating, sometimes invisible, but invisibility builds muscle. America needs wealth that restores confidence, wealth that builds communities instead of exploiting them, wealth that understands generational impact, not just quarterly returns. And that kind of wealth doesn't grow from desperation. It grows from clarity, clarity about identity, clarity about purpose, clarity about why you're even pursuing expansion in the first place. If it's only for validation, it will crumble. Validation is unstable fuel. If it's only for revenge, to prove someone wrong, that fire burns hot and fast, but it doesn't sustain legacy. But if it's rooted in calling, that's different. Calling stabilizes ambition. There's a reason the phrase includes the word kingdom. It implies order, alignment, hierarchy of values. Money is not at the top in a kingdom structure. It's a tool, not a throne. Focus on that. Because the culture constantly tries to reverse the order. It tempts you to worship the tool and ignore the source. And when that inversion happens, collapse follows eventually. Always. Kingdom billionaires understand sequence. They understand that internal order must precede external expansion. They understand that influence multiplies responsibility. You might not see it yet in your bank account. That's fine. The account often lags behind the internal shift. First, the mindset changes. Then the habits align. Then, opportunities begin to surface in ways that look almost coincidental, but aren't. Preparation is rarely visible from the outside, but it's intense on the inside. There will be moments when you question whether aiming for that level of influence is even spiritual. Whether wanting large-scale impact is arrogance disguised as purpose. That tension is real. Sit with it. Don't rush past it. Because the difference between ego-driven wealth and kingdom-driven wealth lies in motive. Motive is invisible to crowds, but obvious to conscience. America needs billionaires who aren't terrified of losing status because their identity was never built on status. That kind of emotional stability changes boardrooms. It changes hiring practices. It changes how companies respond during crisis. We've seen what fear-based leadership does. It cuts corners. It hides truth. It protects image over integrity. Kingdom leadership does the opposite. It absorbs pressure instead of redirecting it downward. It thinks in decades instead of days. Focus, because if you're called to operate at that level, distraction will be the first test. Can you stay steady when others are spiraling? Can you hold vision when trends shift? Can you delay gratification long enough to build something that outlives you? That's the kind of wealth America is missing. Not flashy, not fragile, but grounded. And here's something subtle. Kingdom billionaires don't always look like the stereotype. They're not always loud. Sometimes they move quietly, building ecosystems that empower others to thrive. Sometimes their name isn't the brand. The impact is. You might already be in training and not realize it. The resistance you've faced, the financial setbacks that forced you to learn discipline, the betrayals that taught you discernment, the loneliness that strengthened your independence. None of it is wasted if you let it refine instead of harden you. Hardness is easy. Refinement is harder. America doesn't need more hardened leaders. It needs refined ones, and refinement takes time. It takes humility. It takes being corrected without collapsing. It takes being wrong and adjusting instead of defending ego. If wealth landed on someone unrefined, it would magnify flaws. But when it lands on someone refined, it magnifies wisdom. That's why the process feels longer than you expected. Because it's not just about scaling income, it's about scaling capacity. Capacity to manage pressure, capacity to absorb criticism, capacity to make decisions that won't be popular in the short term, but will be respected in the long term. Kingdom billionaires think long. They're not obsessed with viral success. They're obsessed with structural stability. And structure is built in quiet seasons. So if right now you feel unseen, that doesn't disqualify you. It might be positioning you, because when influence arrives suddenly, it tests what you've built privately. And private character either holds or collapses under public scrutiny. America's future economy will be shaped by whoever can combine capital with conscience, innovation with integrity, expansion with empathy through empathy. That combination is rare. But rarity doesn't mean impossibility. It means responsibility. And responsibility requires focus, not frantic hustle, not burnout disguised as ambition. Real focus, directed attention, strategic restraint. You don't have to prove anything to anyone right now. You have to build correctly, quietly, patiently, intentionally. Because when the next financial shift happens, and it will, those who are internally ordered will rise differently than those who are externally hyped. Kingdom billionaires don't chase chaos. They create stability within it. America needs that stability. It needs wealth carriers who don't panic when markets shake, who don't compromise when pressure increases, who don't forget their values when opportunities multiply. That kind of person is not manufactured overnight. They are shaped over years, through mistakes, through correction, through recalibration. If you're listening to this and something in you feels steady instead of excited, that's a good sign. Hype fades, steadiness builds. And what this nation truly needs isn't another flash of brilliance. It needs anchored brilliance, wealth that remembers where it came from, influence that bows to something higher than itself, focus, chosen one, not on the spotlight, on the structure, because when the time comes, and it will come, America will not just need billionaires, it will need kingdom billionaires, and those are built long before they are seen. Chosen one, if you've made it this far, then you already feel it. This isn't about chasing a number, it's about becoming the kind of person who can hold a number without losing your soul. Take a breath with me for a second. There's a strange tension in this country right now. You can almost taste it. Wealth is expanding in some places and evaporating in others. Power is concentrating, influence is shifting, and people are tired. Tired of leaders who sound confident but feel hollow. Tired of systems that promise security but produce anxiety. Tired of watching money flow without meaning. And in the middle of that exhaustion, there's a quiet call. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. America needs kingdom billionaires, not celebrities with portfolios, not influencers with stock options, not executives who only measure life in margins and market caps. It needs men and women who can walk into rooms of extreme power and not tremble, not because they're arrogant, but because they're anchored. Anchored in something deeper than profit. Let me say something plainly. The future will not be shaped by whoever shouts the loudest. It will be shaped by whoever can withstand the longest. Endurance is about to matter more than hype. Stability will matter more than speed, and integrity will matter more than image. That's where you come in. But here's the part people don't talk about. Stepping into kingdom-level wealth requires you to let parts of yourself die. The insecure part that needs applause. The reactive part that wants revenge. The impulsive part that chases every opportunity just to feel important. You can't carry billions if your emotions carry you. That's not judgment, that's physics. If your identity is unstable, expansion will destabilize you further. If your values are unclear, pressure will expose that instantly. Money magnifies. Influence amplifies. Power accelerates what already exists. So the real preparation was never about networking harder. It was about becoming unshakable. Think about it. When markets drop, who stays calm? When headlines scream, who reads between the lines? When everyone else reacts emotionally, who moves strategically? That's kingdom thinking. Kingdom billionaires don't operate from panic. They don't build from fear. They don't hoard from insecurity. They build systems that outlast their own names. They create structures that feed families they'll never meet. They make decisions that might not trend, but will stand. America is hungry for that. Because deep down, people know when wealth is empty. You can feel it. It shows up in corporations that scale, but don't care. In leadership that performs, but doesn't protect. In industries that expand, but don't elevate. The nation doesn't need more expansion without empathy. It needs expansion guided by conscience. And that kind of calling is heavy. If you've ever felt that weight, the sense that you're meant for more, but not just more money, more responsibility, then you understand this. It's not glamorous. It's not always exciting. Sometimes it's isolating. Sometimes it makes you question why you even desire that level of influence. But desire isn't the enemy. Disorder is. Desiring large-scale impact isn't arrogance when it's rooted in service. It becomes dangerous only when it's rooted in ego. That's why this entire message has been about focus. Focus protects calling. Distraction dilutes it. There will always be shiny shortcuts. Fast money, viral moments, emotional reactions disguised as boldness. But kingdom wealth grows differently, slowly, intentionally, layer by layer. It builds character before it builds capital. And maybe, just maybe, that's why your journey hasn't looked flashy. Maybe that's why things took longer than you expected. Maybe the delay wasn't denial. Maybe it was development. Because once scale arrives, you don't get to pause and mature. You either already have the capacity B or you collapse under the weight. America is entering a season where conscience-driven capital will matter more than ever. Technology is accelerating. Artificial intelligence is reshaping industries. Global dynamics are shifting. Power is redistributing. In that storm, people will look for steady hands. Steady hands aren't born in comfort. They're formed in pressure. If you've been pressed, stretched, humbled, corrected, slowed down, that wasn't random. It was training. It was insulation being built into your character so that when influence expands, you don't short-circuit. Kingdom billionaires don't just manage wealth. They manage impact. They understand that every decision ripples outward, into communities, into culture, into the future. And here's something most people don't realize. The higher you rise, the more invisible temptations become. Not obvious scandals, subtle shifts, small compromises, gradual misalignments. That's why internal clarity has to be non-negotiable. If you ever step into rooms where billions are discussed casually, your moral compass must be stronger than the pressure in the air. Because money speaks. It whispers. It promises security. It promises admiration. It promises control. But if you're kingdom-rooted, you won't be seduced by what you're meant to steward. You'll understand something simple and powerful. Ownership is temporary. Stewardship is eternal. That mindset changes everything. It changes how you hire. It changes how you fire. It changes how you invest. It changes how you respond when profit conflicts with principle. America needs leaders who will choose principle. Not loudly, not performatively, quietly, consistently. And that kind of consistency doesn't come from talent alone. It comes from alignment. Alignment between belief and behavior, between vision and discipline, between ambition and humility. Let's get very real for a moment. If tomorrow you were handed the level of wealth you think you want, would your current habits support it? Would your relationships survive it? Would your mindset stabilize it? These are not comfortable questions, but they're necessary ones, because kingdom billionaires are not surprised by expansion. They're prepared for it. Prepared to stay generous when they don't have to be. Prepared to stay grounded when they don't need approval. Prepared to stay ethical when no one is watching. That's maturity. And maturity is magnetic. People can sense when someone carries power without being intoxicated by it. It feels safe. It feels steady. It feels trustworthy. America is craving trustworthy power. You might not see headlines about it. You might not hear commentators saying it explicitly, but beneath the noise, beneath the political arguments and economic debates, there's a deeper hunger for leadership that doesn't fracture under pressure, for wealth that doesn't exploit, for influence that doesn't manipulate. That's kingdom energy. And if you're called to embody that, your preparation isn't optional. It's sacred. You don't get to drift. You don't get to numb out. You don't get to blame the system endlessly while doing nothing to strengthen yourself. Focus on your discipline, on your emotional regulation, on your integrity in small matters, on your ability to delay gratification, on your willingness to learn quietly. Because when the window opens, and it will open for those aligned, hesitation will cost you, not because you're unworthy, but because you're unprepared. This isn't about becoming obsessed with wealth. It's about becoming capable of handling it responsibly. There's a difference. Obsession chases, capability attracts. If you felt overlooked, don't confuse that with insignificance. Sometimes obscurity is insulation. Sometimes it's protection while foundations are poured. Skyscrapers don't start in the sky. They start underground, deep, reinforced, hidden. Kingdom billionaires are built the same way. So as this message closes, I want you to sit with something quietly. Not excitement, not hype, not fantasy. Weight. The weight of responsibility, the weight of potential. The weight of influence that could shape more than just your own life. America doesn't need reckless wealth, it needs righteous capacity. It needs men and women who can look at enormous opportunity and not lose their center. Who can scale without selling their soul. Who can build without forgetting why they started. If that stirs something in you, not ego, but resolve, then protect it. Protect your focus, protect your growth, protect your alignment. Because when the time comes and the doors open wider than you imagined, the question won't be, can you make money? The question will be, can you carry it? Chosen one, the future is not waiting for the loudest voice. It is waiting for the most prepared heart.